Millions of families across America are trying to plan a Mother's Day weekend right now. Restaurants are booked, flowers are ordered, outdoor barbecues are scheduled, and the atmosphere has something entirely different in mind. A complex of severe storms is organizing over Louisiana and Arkansas at this very moment, and forecasters are watching to see if it holds together long enough to make a run for South Mississippi. Flash flooding is already possible from northeastern Texas to southern Louisiana, stretching eastward into northern Florida and southern Georgia. The Interstate 10 corridor, one of the busiest stretches of highway in the South, is directly in the crosshairs. And this is just today. Because what is building for the days after Mother's Day is something far more serious. A deepening surface low is forecast to develop across the Central Plains by Tuesday. Gulf moisture is returning northward with a vengeance, and the Storm Prediction Center is already flagging the potential for another significant, severe weather outbreak before the week is out. This storm is not winding down. It is getting a lot worse. This is Weather Signal. Let us establish where things actually stand this morning, Saturday, May 9th, because the picture emerging from overnight forecast discussions is significantly more complicated than most people realize. The Weather Prediction Center confirmed Thursday that heavy rain and thunderstorms will persist across the southeast and the lower Mississippi Valley through the end of this week, and their definition of end of the week extends straight into the Mother's Day weekend. Numerous showers and thunderstorms will continue to make weather headlines across the Gulf Coast region through Saturday in the general vicinity of a stalled frontal boundary, with areas from southeastern Texas to the Florida Panhandle having the potential to get 1 to 2 inches of additional rainfall, with some localized 3+ inch amounts possible. That stalled frontal boundary is the key phrase. When a frontal boundary stalls, it does not just produce one round of rain and move on. It sits, it lingers. It acts as a repeated trigger for storm development, generating wave after wave of convection over the same saturated ground. The NWS office, serving South Mississippi and the Gulf Coast, confirmed that a complex of storms is expected to form hundreds of miles northwest of South Mississippi, over Louisiana and Arkansas, and if those storms hold together, they could make a run for South Mississippi during the first half of the day Saturday. Some of these storms may be strong to severe, with the main risk being isolated, damaging wind gusts and hail, though a brief tornado cannot be ruled out. Flash flooding is possible, where storms train over the same areas and dump heavy rain. Training storms. That is the phrase that should make anyone in the affected region stop and pay attention. When meteorologists say storms are training, they mean successive storm cells are forming and moving over the exact same geographic areas, like train cars passing over the same section of track. Each cell drops another inch or two of rain on ground that already received multiple inches earlier this week. The cumulative effect is catastrophic for low-lying areas, urban drainage systems, small creeks and streams, and any community that sits in a natural drainage basin. This is precisely the kind of meteorological setup that turns a rainy weekend into a deadly flood disaster. AccuWeather, senior meteorologist Adam Dowdy put it plainly, Mother's Day weather across the United States will be a tale of contrasts, with rainy or stormy conditions in much of the east and sunny, warm conditions in the west. But the word contrasts does not fully capture the extremity of what different regions of this country are dealing with simultaneously. In the southeast, the rain could be heavy enough to cause localized flash flooding from northeastern Texas to southern Louisiana and eastward into northern Florida and southern Georgia. And travelers along the Interstate 10 corridor should use caution. Dowdy added that while severe weather is not expected to be widespread, locally damaging thunderstorms may be possible in the southeast, along with areas of heavy rain. Nashville, Atlanta, and New Orleans are all in the zone where outdoor Mother's Day plans face a real risk of disruption, and not just from rain, from potentially damaging storms. The Houston area is dealing with a particularly tricky forecast. An abundant amount of moisture from the subtropical jet stream is combining with small areas of low pressure, called disturbances, to create rain, with these lows having potential to cause isolated street flooding. Meanwhile, in New England and the mid-Atlantic, another storm system sweeps in to fill the void after the first front exits, meaning Sunday morning will be cloudy with scattered rain likely north and west of Interstate 495 and for the Merrimack Valley. And in the west, a completely different world entirely. A large area of high pressure is bringing widespread sunshine and hot conditions as a heat wave builds for the interior southwest. Las Vegas is sitting at or near triple digits. The desert southwest is baking. AccuWeather confirmed that dry weather is on the docket for New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. for at least part of the day Sunday, while Minneapolis to Kansas City will be blessed with a rain-free day. This geographic split is not random. It is the direct expression of the atmospheric pattern that has dominated 2026. A deep upper-level trough locked over the eastern half of the country, holding cold, wet, unstable air in place, while a powerful ridge of high pressure dominates the west and keeps it sunny, dry, and dangerously hot. These two systems are not fighting each other. They are reinforcing each other. And the zone between them, where cold meets warm, where dry meets moist, where Arctic air meets Gulf moisture, is exactly where the most explosive weather keeps developing. It is the same zone that produced the EF4 tornado in Enid, Oklahoma, on April 23rd. It is the same zone that produced the EF3 tornado near Mineral Wells, Texas, on April 28th. And it is the same zone that is going to produce the next significant severe weather outbreak in the days after Mother's Day. Here's the part of this forecast that has meteorologists paying the closest attention this weekend, because while the Mother's Day storms are disruptive and in some areas dangerous, what is building for the Tuesday through Wednesday window is a setup that could be significantly more serious. By day 6 on Tuesday, a deepening surface low is forecast across the Central Plains as a weak shortwave impulse migrating through northwesterly flow aloft glances the region, with increasing southerly low-level flow beginning to transport Gulf moisture northward across portions of the central United States. Let me walk you through exactly what that means in plain terms. A surface low deepening over the Central Plains is the textbook trigger for a major severe weather outbreak. When a surface low develops and intensifies, it pulls warm, moist air northward from the Gulf of Mexico on its eastern flank, while simultaneously drawing cold, dry air southward from Canada on its western flank. The collision zone between those two air masses, directly to the east and southeast of that surface low, is where severe weather erupts, supercell thunderstorms organize, tornadoes develop. Hail grows to dangerous sizes. And this is the setup the Storm Prediction Center is watching, develop right now 5 days out, which is notable. Forecasters typically do not start flagging specific severe weather potential until 3 or 4 days out. The fact that this signal is already being discussed at day 6 tells you something important about the confidence level in this pattern. The Storm Prediction Center has already increased the severe weather threat for portions of eastern Kansas, northern Missouri, and western Illinois, including Kansas City and Springfield, to a level 2 out of 5 risk. That is a slight risk designation, which means forecasters are confident that organized severe weather will occur in that area. The specific timing on the slight risk covers the early part of next week, and the threat area is expected to expand and intensify as models get a better handle on the exact position and timing of the surface low. Fox Weather confirmed that severe weather will spread across the Midwest and Great Lakes late Monday before reaching the southern plains and the deep south by midweek, and that the northern half of the cold front will bring heavy rain to the northeast as snow wraps behind the front across the northern plains and the Rockies. Snow in the northern plains and Rockies behind a cold front in mid-May is not unusual by itself, but the combination of that snow threat in the north simultaneously with tornado and hail threats in the south is a vivid illustration of just how dramatic the atmospheric contrast driving this pattern really is. You have winter on one side of the front and severe summer-like thunderstorm conditions on the other side, separated by just a few hundred miles. To fully understand why the next round of severe weather is so alarming, you need to understand where we are in the 2026 tornado season, because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Just within the last month, there have been more than 260 reported tornadoes across the central United States, with the highest concentration centered over the Midwest. That is not a full season number. That is 1 month. Wikipedia's Tornadoes of 2026 page documents what this season has already produced in sobering detail. A large and long-tracked EF3 tornado passed through the southern portions of Kankakee, Illinois, and the suburb of Aroma Park, damaging over 500 buildings and killing 1 person, before crossing into Indiana and striking Lake Village, where it killed 2 people and damaged an additional 106 buildings. The supercell also produced potentially record-breaking hail, with reports of 5 to 6 inch hailstones in the Kankakee area, which, if confirmed, would break the former Illinois state record of 4 75-inch diameter hail. An EF2 tornado in Bloomington, Indiana prompted a particularly dangerous situation, tornado warning for the city, with widespread damage reported. Both damaging tornadoes were produced by the same cyclic supercell that tracked more than 150 miles through the risk area. Earlier in the season, in Oklahoma, an EF2 tornado near Fairview killed a mother and daughter along U.S. Highway 60, followed by additional tornadoes near Beggs and northern Tulsa that tore through homes, damaged a middle school, and left thousands without power. In southern Michigan, early March tornadoes around Union Lake and Edwardsburg destroyed neighborhoods, killing at least 4 people, including a 12-year-old boy, and injuring more than a dozen others. The NWS Chicago office added critical regional context. As of April 19, 2026, there had been 11 individual thunderstorm events associated with at least 1 report of severe weather within the NWS Chicago forecast area alone, against an average of around 4 such days from January 1st through April 30th, nearly 3 times the historical average, and that was before May even started. The lower Great Lakes region has been called a hotspot for severe weather, with a remarkably active corridor from eastern Iowa into southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois seeing an unusually dense concentration of tornado, wind damage, and hail reports. This is the backdrop against which the next outbreak is developing. Communities across the central United States are not just dealing with storms in isolation. They are dealing with cumulative damage from weeks of repeated severe weather. Infrastructure has been stressed repeatedly. Trees weakened by previous storms are more vulnerable to the next round. Soils saturated by repeated heavy rainfall events have less capacity to absorb more rain. Emergency responders are stretched. Insurance companies are overwhelmed. And now another significant outbreak is building for next week. Beyond the tornado threat, beyond the hail and wind threat, flooding is the hazard that has the greatest potential to kill people in this pattern. And it is the hazard that receives the least attention. The WPC's extended forecast confirmed that locally heavy rainfall is possible along the frontal boundary through Monday, and that the southern extent of a previous front will continue to stall across the Gulf Coast region, where persistent moisture pooling and weak impulses embedded in the subtropical flow could support occasional convection and heavy rainfall along the southeast through Sunday. The phrase persistent moisture pooling is the flooding alarm bell in that forecast discussion. When moisture pools along a stalled boundary, it does not produce a single burst of heavy rain. It produces repeated episodes. One squall line passes. Another forms 4 hours later, then another. The ground has no time to drain between events. Rivers and streams that were already running high from earlier this week's rainfall get pushed progressively higher with each new episode. The water table rises until there is literally nowhere for new rainfall to go except over the surface. And at that point, every additional inch of rain becomes a flood. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's description of flash flooding from their education resources makes the stakes plain. Flash floods are the #1 weather-related killer in the United States. They develop suddenly. They can occur within minutes of intense rainfall, and they are almost always underestimated by the people caught in them. The deceptive power of moving water is the critical fact that people ignore right up until it is too late. 6 inches of fast-moving water is enough to knock an adult off their feet. 2 feet of moving water will sweep away most vehicles, including pickup trucks, SUVs, and large sedans. The road surface beneath, flooded water may have already washed away, leaving nothing but a watery void where pavement used to be. This is the threat profile for communities from northeastern Texas through southern Louisiana and into the Florida Panhandle this weekend. Flash flooding is possible, where storms train over the same areas and dump heavy rain. And with the stalled front sitting stationary, training storms are exactly what the atmosphere is producing. While the east endures flooding and tornadoes, the west is dealing with an entirely different emergency that is escalating by the day. Heat is returning across much of the western United States following a 6-week hiatus and may exceed some year-to-date high temperatures set in March, with many inland areas of California expected to be 20 to 30 degrees warmer from Thursday into the weekend compared to last weekend. AccuWeather senior meteorologist Tom Kintz confirmed that places like Las Vegas and Fresno, California, could see their first 100-degree temperatures of the year this weekend, while Sacramento should reach 90 degrees for the first time since last autumn. But the heat is not just an inconvenience. It is a direct accelerant to the wildfire risk that Colorado's governor already declared a state of emergency over. The western drought is severe and worsening. Colorado just came through its driest winter on record. Snowpack across the Rockies was critically low all season, and now, with the moisture that finally arrived in the form of last week's historic May snowstorm melting rapidly under sharply. Warming temperatures, the combination of drying soils, dried vegetation, low relative humidity, and building heat is creating precisely the tinderbox conditions that fire officials have been warning about since early spring. AccuWeather warned that El Niño is forecast to strengthen and could evolve into a rare super El Niño later in 2026, which could have even bigger impacts on the weather across the United States in the final months of 2026 and the start of 2027. AccuWeather's Paul Pastlock identified the flooding zone to watch most closely as running from Texas to the Ohio Valley, including the Texas Hill Country. That is exactly where the stalled frontal boundary is sitting right now. That is exactly where the training storms are developing. And that is exactly where next week's surface low is forecast to deepen and generate another round of severe weather. The forecast that was issued months ago as a seasonal outlook is now verifying in real time, storm by storm, week by week. The NOAA Storm Prediction Center's Severe Weather 101 educational resources note something critical for understanding the current moment. The peak tornado season for the southern plains, including Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, is from May into early June. We are right in the absolute heart of peak tornado season for these regions. The communities that have already been devastated by the EF4 in Enid, the EF3 near mineral wells, the Kankakee EF3, and the Alabama Enhanced Risk are now heading into the most climatologically active period of the tornado season. The risk is not declining. Statistically, it is at or near its annual peak. If you are in the southeast, from eastern Texas across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and into Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, the most important thing you can do today and through Sunday is treat this Mother's Day weekend storm system with complete seriousness. Do not assume that because there is not a formal tornado watch posted for your county right now that you are safe from flash flooding or from locally damaging thunderstorms. The storm complex developing over Louisiana and Arkansas is being actively monitored by meteorologists across the region. If those storms hold together and track toward South Mississippi and the Alabama Gulf Coast as forecast, conditions can deteriorate very rapidly. For anyone planning outdoor Mother's Day activities anywhere from Nashville to Atlanta to New Orleans, have a backup plan indoors. Know where you will go if lightning or heavy rain forces you inside. Monitor radar on your phone throughout the day and evening. If thunderstorms approach, do not shelter under trees, in picnic pavilions, or on covered porches. These structures offer no protection from lightning. A sturdy building with 4 walls is the only safe shelter during a thunderstorm. For the Interstate 10 corridor specifically, use caution. This stretch of highway passes through some of the most flood-prone terrain in the South. If you encounter standing water on the road at any point this weekend, do not drive through it. Turn around. Find an alternate route. The water may be deeper than it looks, and the road surface beneath it may not be intact. For communities across Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois, your preparation window for next week's outbreak is this weekend. The surface low targeting Tuesday and Wednesday is still being refined, but the broad signal is clear. Severe weather is coming, and the same areas that have already been hit repeatedly this spring are in the threat zone again. Identify your shelter now. Make sure your weather radio has fresh batteries. Make sure your phone has emergency weather alerts enabled and that the volume is turned up, especially if you go to sleep before warnings are issued for your area. For the western United States, the heat threat is real and accelerating. Do not spend extended time outdoors without water and shade during peak hours. Check on elderly neighbors. Know the signs of heat stroke, confusion, hot, dry skin, rapid heartbeat, loss of consciousness, and do not hesitate to call 911 if you see those symptoms. A heat-related death is always preventable if action is taken quickly enough. This is the kind of forecast that requires you to stay locked in, not just today, not just through Mother's Day, but through the entire week ahead. The pattern is not breaking. The cold front is not the last one. The Gulf moisture is not going away, and the next significant outbreak is already building on the models. Weather Signal is going to be tracking every development of this system in real time, and the fastest way to make sure you never miss a critical update is to hit subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Every time the Storm Prediction Center upgrades a risk area, every time the WPC issues a new excessive rainfall discussion, every time the pattern shifts in a meaningful way, you will know about it here first. Share this video with anyone you know who lives in the Southeast, the Southern Plains, the Midwest, or anywhere else in this pattern's path. In a weather situation, this active, sharing accurate information is not just helpful. It is a genuine act of safety. Hit that like button so this forecast reaches more people who need to see it. Stay with Weather Signal, stay informed, and above all, stay safe out there.